Once upon a day, around high 12, I took a stroll through the forest as a matter of necessity. This I had to do despite the remoteness of the forest from my usual habitat. Oft I would do this in moments reflected when the need was great, to remove myself from the circadian cares of life in the busy ports and hubs of the city, places that neither rest nor permit resting by those who desired. If it were not to seek solace, then it would be to contemplate what I must do to consummate the meaning of life and the higher aspirations of duty, the better to seek affinity and commiseration with my fellow creatures. Allow me, therefore, to introduce myself. I am called Kiefer, and I live in the city far across the meadow, which beginneth just at the base of the elevated woods. Let it be said that the place of the great trees is the most pleasant on earth, and fitting, therefore, for contemplative thought. Now, it is not by any accident that I happen to choose the woods as my preferred resting resort, for within their auspicious surroundings, my mind openeth to visions nowhere else could be seen, and within them also my deeper and more reconciling thoughts occur. There is something magical about the forest. But what had led me to it, one may ask? For this to be answered, I must tell thee how well I remember when as a boy, sitting upon my grandfather's lap, I would listen to the stories he would love to tell. Many they were, in fact, beyond count. But that which I remember best, and which was most compelling, was a story about a stone that had fallen from the sky. Onto the barren ground below it fell, where it transformed into vast roots that penetrated deep into the dusty soil. And then the roots burgeoned into a mighty tree that loomed high above the surface, as if to nourish a once desolate place. It had never before occurred to me that the seeds of trees come from the sky in the form of stones, but my grandfather had said so, and great was his wisdom. Soon other stones would fall and other trees would spring forth. Collectively they formed a magical place where things were perfect and life was verily sweet, even as any child would understand. Now that I've grown older, I regard what the trees had formed to be a majestic sanctuary where all life could find its inner dwelling and restoration, which oddly enough required that one return to his childhood memories to comprehend. But as my grandfather would have had it, his stories continued night by night until each would reach its end, after which, of course, a new one would surely commence. Long had I waited to learn more what became of the stone from heaven. But my grandfather's end came about before the story's conclusion. For after the old man had become ill, the great Creator called him to his final resting place. Blessed be the memories I shall ever cherish. It is now left for me to discover within this forest, so seemingly like that which my grandfather had pictured, a destiny yet unfulfilled. Many years have passed since my grandfather's death, and although my visits here have been liberally noted, there is still no resolution. Yet I have formed many new friends within the forest, and have realized my place to be a peace. Indeed, a respite from life in the busy city from whence I came. Now, there was general stillness in the woods on this particular day of my strolling, except for the songbirds, which sang joyously. Felicitas was there chanting in the orchard, and reverential and sublime my visit there. The trees were mightier than cathedral walls, and they surrounded me utterly. Tradition hath asserted that Arthur and his knights would pass through these woods, stopping to pay homage unto their merciful God, who placed in their keeping certain holy relics which they bore with them on their journeys, whithersoever destiny had led. Indeed, in days past, swans would fly overhead from nearby lakes. in token of God's enduring covenant of peace. Even before the days of Christian knights, Caesar and Cicero, albeit foes they were, and both of whom were cut down, were said to have sought solace in these parts, as had sought many others who followed. Perhaps their spirits had returned hither to make peace between themselves at last. All that was present in the forest that day enraptured my soul and filled it with gratitude to the great Creator who had planted every tree that was pleasant to the sight and who furrowed the ground with the seeds of life and posterity in germ. And alas, who gifted humankind with their oasis of Edenic beauty, a memorial to the holy garden which one day was their hope to regain. Suddenly, however, as an anomaly would present itself, I came upon a tree that had been cut down, with only a stump remaining to meet the eye. "Who hath dared to cut thee down?" said I in an agitated voice, for indeed I love trees above all else. "Tell me who hath done this, that I may seek him out and rebuke him, that I may pray unto the God of heaven, that is just and mighty hand, may seize him at once and cast him into the vision. Tell me what in recompense will give thee assuage, will this horrid deed accomplish, and I shall see that it be done, even according to thy will." "Nay," replied the tree as I wept. Although still despairing, and although I had spoken only figuratively, presently I stood agape, for I did not expect so audible a reply to mine outcry and tumultuous grief as that which I heard, seemingly a voice emanating from the stump itself. "Have no care for what thou seest," said the tree further. "That which is before thine eyes hath been ordained by the progenitor of life, and it is meant neither to offend nor cause thee grief. Within the depths of my present estate a story lieth hidden, and only unto him that hath the ears to hear the forest whimpers, and the eyes to read between the lines, will the meaning thereof be revealed. Upon such words as the tree in all physical appearance had spoken, I did ponder. Was I one of such to whom it had alluded? One who would gain such insight? Indeed, I am known as one who holdeth in due reverence the monumental columns of so lovely a forest as this wherein I lately strode. Certainly it could not be I. "Surely," said I unto the tree, "there must be some other master of nature who hath ventured into these woods more suitable, that thou wouldest unto him the mysteries of thy life reveal. One who hath reconciled order and beauty with chaos and destruction, and whose ears are more tuned to the whimpers of the forest. Let me depart at once, I say, lest the words of thine ordained and sacrificial life be tainted upon by falling upon such unworthy ears as those which I bear." "Peace, my dear friend. Let thy disquietude be dispelled and thy doubt also removed. For indeed it is thee whom I have called hither and none other. I have seen thee in thy former visitations, in thy comings and in thy goings. Even in thine approaches I have heard the songs of thy heart and the patterns of thy shortened feet. Furthermore, by thy name I know thee to have descended from those lives who have faded from the memories of thy fathers, but who notwithstanding had lived in high places among the great conifers, and who like unto thee had reverenced the lofty pillars of the forest serene. Thou art for sure the one whom I called, Kiefer. But I'm merely a denizen of a place far off, one who knoweth the language and glamour of factory life and the commotions and cacophony of an imperfect and impatient people. Tell me, I pray, how dost thou know my name, And by what merits have I deserved thine attention? And also, if not more especially, by what name in return shall I call thee? Now in truth, I felt silly in asking these questions, for who but a child, after all, had ever heard of a tree that speaketh audibly to mortals, or even more preposterous, a tree born with a name. Still, as it were, mine affinity for nature and for towering trees especially is great, and often I would give names to things that were nameless, and I felt certain I would have given names to all the trees in this lovely forest, indeed every tree I had hitherto passed. But this one among them, reduced to so low an estate that only a stump would appear, I had neither seen nor before met. Still, it spoke to me. Thou art indeed silly if thou thinkest even for a minute I have been given a name appreciable by human ears. For unlike the names given unto thee in thy kind, the names reserved for conifers come from a place far away and are seemingly strange to humans. Yet there was a time when this orchard, which is thine earthly oasis, and the place thou callest Eden, were one and the same, because there was nothing to separate them. To surmount the barrier that hath wedged them asunder is a feat that few humans have ever achieved. Consider, Kiefer, the knights of old, whom I've seen pass through these very woods, albeit well before thy birth, and who, bearing the stones of adoration, heard their names called out from heaven. Such names as Titero, Amfortas, Percival, were the names given by earth dwellers unto their possessors. Their true names, however, spelled out in the stars, were uttered beyond the wall, and were audible only to earthlings who understood their connection. But lo, my most stately friend, with names so majestic, hath been reduced, abated in all humility as it were, cut down by an axe. Tell me now whose work this is, this horrid deed, this travesty. Speak his name and bring him forth, that by my hand his power be smitten. Wreak, I say, the wrath of God upon this craft, this blasphemy. Bring him to the highest court, his name on earth and power in heaven be stricken. Behold my reins, since they are many, said the tree unto me. Come therefore, Kiefer, disarm thyself of such harsh and retaliatory thoughts. Sit for a time upon my stump, since it hath been prepared for thee. Dip thy finger into the sap of my bark. Place it upon thy tongue, and let the balm thereof assuage the wounds of thy troubled mind. And alas, hearken unto the whimpers of the forest, as it murmureth into thine ears the story of my life. Here I thought, not but a tree could yield to the acts of sacrifice, and yet speak in such forbearing terms. Not else but a tree could render as sap as the blood of earth, and yet glimmer for a season in the windows of Yuletide homes, and with branches so soon to wither, scatter unto the winds. In due respect, therefore, I sat as bidden. Tasted of the sap, and with all humility and respect for the sacrificial icon, listened well to what had never been imparted to human ears. Many years ago, spake the tree, perhaps a millennium or more, or perhaps before time, I fell to the wind as it breathed upon the branches of an high, beamish, ruddy pine, even as the same swept across the surface of an unknown world. Or let it be acknowledged that there is a place for trees where no mortal, no human ever recalleth having set foot. And after the wind had abated, I settled anew in a place determined by destiny's breath. And there I took root and burgeoned along with other seeds that followed into a little babe. And many were the creatures of the forest lady form that came thither to admire me. And with them also came the little boys and girls, whose eyes were multiplicious in color, and they were at peace, and they made merry around me. But after many years of nurturing, I grew into a majestic column, and along with other trees which had also grown, we formed a vast and peaceful, pleasant forest. But the little boys and girls, they no longer come to visit and play, for such as they have gone their ways, and verily I long for their return. Notwithstanding, I pursued my nature as a tree, and with strong and brilliant branches, the likes of which I no longer bear, I performed what I had learned from my ancient parent before my separation, and indeed from the tree from whence I came. For with its verdant arms it would reach for the solar dew as it rained upon the garden beneath. And all that it had gathered was sent down its mighty shaft to nourish, as it were, the ground below. And all nature resounded and sang orisons for the dew that had descended and for the gift of essence divine. This the majestic tree did each day, as the great monarch of the sky would return to shed its benignant rays. With the sun as father, and the garden as mother, the hand of the Creator was surely at work, and had conceived the whole of the garden, and all therein, and all the parts thereof, that would sow the seeds of posterity. And although but still a seedling myself, I was protected from all manner of ill fate, for nothing could reach me, neither fear nor foe, serpent nor conniver, neither such as had fallen in the flesh. For this tree was truly guarded by two figures in whose hands had been placed flaming swords was it protected. And which is more, from high above the grassy ground, suspended from a lofty branch, I beheld the beauties of a primal place all around me, as creatures alighted and delighted alike. But now and then the wind would visit with something to say. Knowest thou not, dear Kiefer, that there is an heavenly wind? As I am the witness, there is such a wind, I tell thee, and this is what it whispered into mine ear. One day, O child of the ancient pine, thou shalt leave thy verdant home and start a life anew. And Thus the day came to pass, even as the wind had said. And with a powerful gust of breath, I was carried away, but not to the east, nor to the west, neither to the north, nor to the south, not even above, but downward, downward, downward. Even as I descended, I could hear the wind's final and fading words as the distance between us widened. Thy mission, O child of the ancient time, shall be revealed in the seeds thou shalt awaken. Such words uttered by the pineal lips and the aerial whisper that followed filled my head with thoughts of God and His nature's art. That breath is in all things, and that all that have it are the lauding creatures of the Lord of life. That it passeth through all, and weaveth together all things in all times, and that even time and eternity are truly one and the same, and that even the coldest stones of past and present aspire in mutual accord. Such is the lesson I learned in the forest this day, that breath is meant for all things, and that it is the evidence of life. Yet despite the mystery of my ponderings and the ineffability of my words to express them, I must seek means to enrapture my fellow creatures whom I love dearly, weighted and enslaven as they are through the bonds of doldrum, and share with them the revelations that have stirred me in the midst of this forest. I knew, therefore, I had much more to learn from this tree called Oren, and that many more would be the questions I must ask. Whither had the wind taken thee? I then inquired. Alas, my dear lover of the forest, thy ponderings are for naught. For indeed we are together in past and present. There is no balustrade before the gates of God's inner mysteries, making impassable those who seek to enter with pure and contrite heart, and hence nothing shall separate us in form or spirit. Even the pomegranates and nourishing fruits know no bounds for us. The thirst and hunger perceived by much of humanity is but illusionary, for many are they who seek temporal means to satiate their yearnings, and are ignorant of the spiritual springs that are ever around them. Thou art correct, dear Kiefer. Breath is meant for all things, and that it is the evidence of life. Yet singly, it cannot sustain the fullness thereof, even as ordained by the Father of Eden, and by Him who planted the very tree of life. Wherefore speakest thou? I then uttered. Thy words are very obscure. What more is there to life than that which filleth our lungs and propelleth the thoughts we utter from between our lips, and which bringeth together songsters in praise and harmony? Please tell me more, I implore. Very well, dear Kiefer, then hear my words. What they had taught thee years ago in the schools is but true, that each year a new ring is added to a tree's trunk. And hence my life began in ancient times. And from an exalted position, I could see the interior of the forest and all therein, even the skies that hovered above, the birds when they would carry and deliver their messages, and the creatures within as they would dash hither and thither and flit yonder and about. And I would see and hear them take refuge under my shadows, nest in my branches, and sing from my crown. And I saw men also, what they do and have done. Each act is a ripple in time and is recorded as a ring in my towering pillar. I have seen the tenderness of men and their wondrous deeds. And I've seen their ravages and pillages, and I've seen them live and die. Each man that hath fallen hath entered the earth as dust, and hath been absorbed into my roots, and hath filled my veins with his memories. In me are the records of the ages, the good and the bad, the fair and the foul. Everything that hath occurred is now a memory unto me, but not a memory by which to judge, but to become part of who I am. All the events of time dwell beneath the crusty bark that is mine outer garment. Now my life and all that I've seen is on view before thee, dear Kiefer. For I have been cut down, and upon my legacy thou art seated. Let it enrapture thee. Let these memories fill thee, even as they once filled me. And lo, the key to who I am verily is reseated well within mine outer rings, despite the numerous mantles and garments that did define me to the outer world, and is deeply embedded as the inner core, a divine shaft of holy light, invisible to the eye, but let it alone renew thy soul. Sitting upon this stump, the ancient pine, things are now becoming clearer to me. And I do recall the lessons taught me in the school about the manifold rings in the tree, and the knots and burrs in them that when formed make difficult the felling of the timbers. But lo, this tree, which once blessed me in my childhood, hath been cut down and is seemingly lifeless. Yet it speaketh to me as if an imperishable part of it still liveth to bless me in my later years. Tell me, dear Oren, tell me please, wherewith shall I acquire for myself this holy light divine that speaketh unto the soul? Dearly beloved, did I not hear thee formerly declare all that was present in the forest that day enraptured my soul and filled it with gratitude? Did I not hear thee utter this? Few are they among thy kind who are not without some manner of light in their lives, whether that which they see is common or of the mind. For with their eyes they behold the glories of the sun by day and the stars by night. And with their minds they interpret the light of intellect, which in the schools they learn to translate into knowledge in the arts. True, in the hands of some it may be pernicious, but in the palms of the blessed it serveth them well, even as they navigate the darker seas of life. But the light of God, the holy light divine, whereof thou hast inquired, is seen neither after dawn nor following dusk. It is not preached from the pulpits nor heard from the lecterns. Behold, it is within this gentle forest, where the streams never fail. Trust me, beloved, when I tell thee thou hast seen it before, for thou hast seen it in the doves of thy youth and of thy dreams, when they would seek my branches and alight thither. Dost thou not remember the melodies they sang unto thee? Hast thou forgotten these? Restore then my branches, and thy feathered friends will return, and once again thou shalt hear the orisons of the holy light divine. Stunned by such words spoken, I believe an oracle hath been communicated to me. For as breath is exchanged throughout existence, and as light permeateth all nature, such are the streams in which must flow the oblations of the heart. Prayers and offerings are routinely heard from earth, but unfortunately more often than not from perfunctory tongues. Here, however, it is not the same. The journey hither is long and arduous, but it is in earnest. Here there is naught to deter from the heart of God, neither from the streams that flow eternally from his paradisical realm. Trees are in truth but angels, urging the works of God on earth as they do in heaven, and delivering his divine messages. The stones cherished by the knights of old are but the seeds of their commerce between two realms. God hath revealed himself to us in the holy tree of life, even as he had unto Abraham under the shadow of a tree, and unto Moshe in the burning of a bush, and unto all who have made their journeys. Yet when people journey not and forget their parts in the divine plan, they cut off the reality of their existence, and they become hardened and unreceptive to the higher confluences that are around them, and they become ill. Much like the children who had left the forest. They have forgotten the melodies that once stirred their souls, and the fruits that gave them nourishment. These have wizened in the deserts of their barren minds, and lo, a preponderantly material world hath made them jaded. Far from what the ancient pine had taught them, by raising its branches to receive the divine light, the arms of men too oft remain at their sides. There is naught to nourish the ground upon which they walk, and the prevailing consternation is darkness, which they have brought into the world. And the evil, therefore, that they have formed is naught but the rebuffing of the celestial gifts ever sent by God the Father, but not received with open arms by his progeny. Without the rescuing element of light, which is the love of God, the air that men breathe in and exhale is but foul air. Each of his errors soundeth deeply the pillars of the forest, and thus within their rings have been inserted the knots and burrs of transgression as acted out in the world around them. Behold once again my rings, dearly beloved, and note the absence of the knots and burrs whereof thou hast spoken. But indeed, the manifold knots that once studded the whole of my trunk, and the numerous burrs that had marked my branches, these have been cut down in absolution, and like unto thy thirst, which hath proven an illusion, the disappearance of my branches are not in any wise deprivation. They are, in fact, transformation, transformed by the visions of men when they see homes on the hillside, and ships at sea, buildings in the city, and paper off the mill, ever serving the flow of commerce between thee and thy kind. I too have sacrificed for humanity, and thus it is that I am come from a distant place to be with thee in thy precious garden. Have no care, dearly beloved, for thy resolution will soon manifest, and the story told by thy grandfather will be given its conclusion. For the gifts of God never cease to flow, even as the rivers between heaven and earth never fail. And hence, mine own restoration is at hand. For hath it not been written, there is hope of a tree that be cut down, that it will sprout again, that the tender branch thereof will not cease. Surely, all that I have spoken is obscure and cannot be passed on with words or by breath alone. Rather, thy deeds shall speak for thee, and whether thy deeds be inspired by light divine, Oren, sighted by radiance eclipsed, will depend upon thy stature. Stretch forth thine hands, dearly beloved, even as I once stretched forth my branches. For in me thou shalt be given resolution, and in thee I shall be gifted restoration. At last, in a lotus-like position, seated upon the stump of an ancient pine, amid the cathedral-like setting of the forest serene, and in a profound state of meditation, the attentive ear hath received such words as would fulfill a destiny. And through the high offices of love, compassion, and wisdom, the clouds of obscurity hath at last been dispelled. What the knights of old had sought, and their quest to attain it within the forest, were once an enigma for which the answer hath been found. They sought life and immortality, and discovered that the verdant and rooty rivers of paradise were their fountains, and that the emeralds and rubies which they carried were but the seeds of their own awakening. And hence I awaken. And though the rivers are flowing everywhere on earth, it is within the peaceful realm of this garden that the eyes behold their glimmering, that the ears respond to their rustling, that the brow be refreshed, and the thirsty tongue quenched. I turn mine eyes up, and behold 2 turtle doves in flight descending, one destined for my left hand, the other for my right, and into such hands have been deposited the stones of priesthood, which stones I shall ever cherish. And now, heeding the words of Oren, I stood up as bidden, as though rising from my grandfather's lap. And posturing myself on the foundation provided, and stretching mine arms toward the heaven, and beholding the great monarch of the sky, and through the clearing, and with a stone in each hand, I uttered the prayer of eternity. Hail unto thee, O source of the imperishable light, O radiant gardener, who hath planted the very tree of life. Lo, I stand before thee, with hands upward reaching, in search of essence divine. Send forth, I beseech thee, but a single ray of thy primal light, that it may reach even unto me. Grant the gift of persuasion, that I may pass on to my fellow creatures the blessings bequeathed unto me. The world suffereth and is in need of light divine. The dark places are many, and humanity hath long closed its eyes to the refulgence that is ever around them. Forgive our closed and errant ways, and tender unto us for emulation the mercy we have forgotten, and through the acts of compassion and self-sacrifice enable us to render unto our fellows confined to the shadows of earth the seeds of light and life. Though by the axe many a tree hath been felled, and though by the sword many a man hath fallen, yet may the bywing waters of thy paradisical realm descend to raise them anew. Grant vision unto all eyes that reopen. May they behold the beauties of the forest serene, and the majestic columns erected therein. Let the scent of the orchard pass through the portals, down the slopes of the mountain, unto the cities abroad. And may all whom it hath reached come unto this holy place to worship thee, even unto this holy altar, which is the stump of a tree sublime. And now, O Radiant One, forgive us our errors and harsh judgments which we have maintained in prejudice against our brothers and sisters. And let the knots and burrs we have formed over the years recede from our memories, and thus enable our enfeebled hands to reach forth in fond embrace, in love and affection, and in peace and concord forever. Amen. And lowering my hands and descending, I realized that naught else had I gathered but that which had been gifted and ordained, the scintillating dew of life and light. Once again, I glanced at the stump, which now I see as the radiant giant of the forest, and I knew I had raised the fallen. Yonder, I see Caesar and Kiefer embracing one another. And the knights of old, they're all around me, as the columns in a sanctuary, and the place is reverent and holy. On bended knee, I give thanks to this blessed tree of life, and here is parting words. beloved child of the ancient pine, thou hast basked well in the light of God, and bask as thou wilt. For look at the glory. Look at the glory. It is truly heaven on earth. Through thee I have been restored, and behold, once again my branches span eternity. Knowest thou, dearly beloved, there is reward from heaven for those who love and serve their fellow creatures. And this, therefore, is what I offer thee while on bended knee. I awaken and empower the pineal seed at the midst of thy brain. It is the portal to all divine knowledge, and through it the rivers of paradise flow. And lo, within it also is revealed my true name. Revere, therefore, the native names imparted to thee, and never change them. For in all languages of earth, they are God-given and contain the ineffable powers of the mysteries. Alas, the glory of life will not cease, and through thee, beloved, there is hope for thy kind, and which is more, it has been but an illusion that I was a tree in thy lovely garden. For in truth, I am thy holy guardian angel, sent by the progenitor of all creation to dwell with thee for eternity. And now, beloved, if thou art rested, and now that I am healed, arise and go thy way. Thy brothers and sisters in the city await thee. Take unto them a branch, and beware. The work before thee is vast and pressing, but know that I shall be with thee, and shall keep safe the place I have prepared for thee and for those that follow. I love thee forever. And now, arising from bended knee, I look around me and see things I have never seen before. Auras of unknown colors, in the rivers streaming with scintillating light, the voices of angels and choirs singing from the tops of pines, and nature responding with anthems delight. And I see Hiram the builder, who had seen the cedars fall. He reacheth for the sky, for he himself hath become an angel. Lo, he draweth forth the fairest stone from the holy abode of heaven, and hath placed it upon the top of an arch. Alas, the Lord God dwelleth in a luminous cloud within this sanctuary. For the temple of man unto God hath been completed. The children who are lost have come back to the forest, and the song of the doves have returned to my ears. Farewell, dear friend. Farewell, dear keeper of two worlds. Let there be peace and light between us, for now and forever. For in truth, we shall never part. And now, all ye listeners who have heard the story, hear my words if ye be truly my friends. After my life is spent, I wish to be buried in the forest serene, among the trees I love above all else, and without a stone to mark my place. For such a stone would be purloined, as my life will have been recorded in the stump of an old tree.